Good morning, everybody. With my co-chair, Peter Vincent, we are very happy to welcome you to PASC25. We will start with welcoming our local hosts and thanking them. Doris Agotai, who is a professor of computer science and director of the School of Computer Science at the university who is hosting the conference, which is the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Northwestern Switzerland, and Christian Ruege, who is the director of the Paul Scherrer Institute, that's the major institute of the ETH domain, and he is also a professor at EPFL and ETH Zurich and University of Geneva. So they made this conference possible to happen here in Brugg, and let's thank them and welcome them on stage.
Yes, so thank you very much and good morning. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the School of Computer Science of University of Applied Sciences Northwestern Switzerland, here in Brugg-Windisch. It's a really great honor to host this excellent conference here on our campus. So I would like to take the opportunity to briefly introduce our institution. The School of Computer Science is currently in the midst of its funding phase. So previously we have been part of the School of Engineering. So for us this is a very exciting moment, also, together with the start of this conference now. At the University of Applied Sciences, roughly half of our activities are dedicated to teaching and the other half to applied research and development. So, you can see on the picture, this is when we started a couple of months ago. The new name was just placed on the wall in the entrance over there. The school is composed of 3 institutes, each with a different research focus. So we have the Institute of Data Science, we have the Institute of Interactive Technologies, and the Institute of Mobile and Distributed Systems. The strongest thematic link to this conference is through the Institute of Data Science. In terms of teaching, we currently offer 2 bachelor programs, which is the program in computer science and the program in data science. And overall, we have around 650 students. This summer, with the launch of the new school, we are introducing a new program, which will be a program in AI and HPC. You can see it's highlighted, Artificial Intelligence and High-Performance Computing. So HPC is one of the areas we would like to strengthen and to further develop. So we have just appointed a new professor for HPC, someone who many of you might already know, and who probably also sits here in the plenary. This is Thomas Kasprak. So congratulations and also a warm welcome. I don't know, I can't see anything, whether he's here. I would also like to share a brief insight into some of our research in the area. So whilst I'm not an expert myself, Simon Martin from the Institute of Data Science kindly prepared a short overview for me. One existing project is Euclid. It's an ESA mission involving a space telescope with 3 goals. First, to map the universe, then to investigate dark energy and dark matter, and to gain more understanding on the expansion of the universe. The contribution from the School of Computer Science lies in the HPC framework, which forms the core of the Euclid's processing architecture. With that, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity for this welcome. I'm looking forward to all the presentations, to the opportunity for exchange, and I wish you all a great and inspiring conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Doris, for co-hosting this conference and for you all to come here. When the idea came up to host this PASC conference here in this region, it was quite a challenge to find the rooms and hotel rooms for all of you, and I hope we could find good solutions. I would like to thank also Doris and FHNW for providing these excellent lecture halls and other meeting rooms for this meeting. As Laura introduced, I'm the director of the Paul Scherrer Institute, which is 5 kilometers down the river, basically. We are the biggest Swiss national laboratory. So quite a few of you are coming from the US and know very well the US national labs. We have, in a sense, a similar system here in Switzerland, that we have the ETH domain, which is the government-run organization for science and technology in Switzerland. It has, as part of the ETH domain, ETH Zurich and EPFL, and 4 national laboratories. So PSI is one of them, and our mission is to run and also use the large-scale research infrastructures for Switzerland. So Paul Scherrer Institute, we have in total 5 large infrastructures. It's a Flea Aricton laser, Swiss light source, a neutron source, a muon source, and the Swiss installations for particle physics. So we build and operate these machines. And also on top of that, we do a science program in essentially 4 areas. That's future technologies, that's innovation in health, it's energy and climate, and the fundamentals of nature. So what we realized, and many of us realized this, of course, is that computing, data science is an essential part of scientific excellence these days. And at PSI, we have created a Center for Scientific Computing Theory and Data now in 2021, together with several important new professorships, one of which is Laura Grigori, who is a chair together with EPFL in Lausanne, and also Nicola Marzari, who is in the audience, also between PSI and EPFL. So these are exciting news, and it's very fantastic to have all of you here. We all believe the combination of, for example, large experiments like the one mentioned by Doris and data science, HPC, are really an excellent combination to make a large impact in science and also technology development. And with this, actually, I just would like to again welcome you. There is an opportunity also to come and visit PSI, those of you that are still around on Thursday morning, and some of you have signed up already. There's an opportunity to visit the institutes. It's not far away, but in the morning we would leave from here and we have a small excursion, and then a couple of hours. So you can register on the website if you are interested to join this. So this would be great. So let me finish by thanking you again for coming here to Brook and for this exciting conference. I invite you to use the opportunity for local exchange as well with people that are from FHNW and also from PSI in the audience. And then I just wish you a fantastic program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I invite now my co-chair, Peter Vincent, and with this, I would like to remind you that the theme of this PASC25 is supercomputing for sustainable development. So we wanted to explore how HPC can be used to address some of the sustainable development goals which are defined by the United Nations. And we are really very happy to see that many of the talks are aligned with this theme. And we also wanted to put an emphasis on reproducibility. So what are the best practices for us to make our codes reproducible? And we hope that whenever you can during your talk, you can explain what do you do to make your results and your codes reproducible. So we have a really extremely rich program this year. So we have an interdisciplinary dialogue, 1 plenary panel discussion, 4 keynote presentations, including a public lecture, 18 papers, which are published in the ACM Digital Library, 49 posters, and some of them are competing in the ACM Student Research Competition, and more than 150 talks, which are grouped in 42 mini-symposia. So right after this welcome, we have our first invited speaker, Bronson Messer from Oak Ridge, and he will be talking about the Frontier supercomputer. Then we have Elisa Molinari from Unimore, Italy, and she will be talking about the simulation of matter and materials. And then we have Alberto Figuera from University of Michigan, who will be discussing how to address coronary artery disease. Then we have the interdisciplinary dialogue, and that's about learning to fly and how to harness high-performance computing and machine learning for sustainable aviation. And we have, as interviewer, Matej Praportnik from National Institute of Chemistry in Slovenia, and Paula Cinella from Sorbonne University in France. And by a happy coincidence, the best paper of PASC25 is going to be presented by Catherine Arneson, and it's about toward more usable, reproducible, and sustainable scientific software. And then, with this, I will pass it to Peter.
Thank you very much, Laura. So, hi, I'm Peter Vincent from Imperial College London. I'm the other co-chair of this PASC conference this year. I'm going to pick up the slides now. So the final event I think we want to highlight here is the panel discussion, which is on the final day, which is on the theme of the entire conference, so supercomputing for sustainable development, and will be moderated by Neil Ashton from NVIDIA, who I know firsthand is excellent at moderating these panel discussions. So I'm super excited for that, with the 4 panelists who've kindly agreed to take part. I'll put up here. And then I just want to go through now and flag up a few other important events that are happening and some data and logistics, and then we can move into the keynote. So there's also a networking session happening today between 2:30 and 6 in room 5.1A117, where you'll have the opportunity to come and chat with these particular companies and entities up on the screen. And now into PASC by numbers. So we have 412 registered participants this year. This is the trajectory of number of participants since PASC started over 10 years ago. 58% of these are now international. You can see how in red we've got the fraction of international attendees, how that's gone up relative to the number of Swiss attendees over the years. So over half now international. There's also an interview corner that's set up in room 6A03. So this is for interviews initially with organisers of mini-symposia. You may have already got an invite to come here and be interviewed about the mini-symposia that you've set up. I think other people will be invited to come and have an interview here throughout the course of the next 3 days. This is some important logistics. Let me put all of the bits up. So this is very pertinent in particular for anyone who's giving a talk, organising a mini-symposia session, chairing sessions with talks in. And the main message here is you need to make sure that you are logged in to the event platform. You've got your credentials as to how to do this, because the sessions are all going to be recorded through Zoom. Some people are attending remotely as well through Zoom, so you need to make sure that you're hooked up properly with microphones, etc., and logged into the Zoom platform as per the instructions that you've been given, so that remote attendees can get the full benefit, and also so your talk is recorded for posterity, because the recorded talks are going to be hosted after the fact. So that's some important logistics. Oh, and also I was told to make sure I flag up this bottom right-hand corner, which is the rooms within which the talks are given are a little bit dispersed across the campus, so you have to maybe walk to them. So do make sure you get there well ahead of time to set yourself up. Another piece of logistics is that there's an event this evening, a dinner event, which is for registered participants only. You will have registered yourself, and you'll have a sort of indication on your badge as to whether you're registered and what type of food you're getting. So that's happening this evening. This is the organising team, and I know Laura and I are on the stage, and we're the co-chairs of this event, but massive credit to everyone here, and I'll flag up Tatiana in particular, because her energy has driven the entire thing over the course of 12 months to make this happen. So thank you to everybody, and in particular Tatiana, who's done an amazing job. Yes. Don't know where she is. Hiding somewhere, probably. But in the back, somewhere. It's also very important sponsors, without which this couldn't happen. So we'll flag up all of our critical sponsors on this slide. So thank you very much to the sponsors of the event and our institutional partners. And I think finally, my final slide is that if you're on social media and you want to use hashtags and associated things, this is a hashtag to use if you want to publicize what you're doing to other people on the internet. So thank you very much, and hand back to you, Laura, I think. Is that?
So with this, we wish you to enjoy the conference, and I think we have a short break before we start with the plenary speaker. Thank you. Okay, so welcome back to our first keynote of the conference. It's my great pleasure to introduce today Bronson Messer, who is a distinguished staff scientist and the Director of Science at the Oak Ridge Leadership Computing Facility. He is also a joint faculty professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of Tennessee. He served in 2018-2020 on the American Physical Society's Committee on Informing the Public, and he was awarded in 2020 the Secretary of Energy Honor Award for his contribution in enabling the COVID-19 HPC consortium. But now that's all behind us. And today, Bronson is going to talk about fulfilling the promise of the world's first exascale supercomputer, Science on Frontier. Unfortunately, he had to cancel his trip to Switzerland, but he will be presenting online.
Laura, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we don't see yet the slides. Okay, here we go.
Terrific. Well, first, let me thank the organizers for the flexibility and the opportunity to be with you, at least virtually today, to tell you something about what I consider to be the whole purpose of building very, very large computers, which has been part and parcel of my life for almost 2 decades now, and that's actually doing science with them. So to that end, let's jump right in. I sometimes have to remind myself that not everybody knows about the Leadership Computing Facility at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in the U.S. The first thing I often tell people is that particularly our mission as a leadership computing facility makes the machines that we field a little bit more like the things like the James Webb Telescope, or indeed the Large Hadron Collider just to the southwest of where most of everybody's sitting right now. That is, it's a unique scientific instrument, more than it is a very, very large cluster. Part and parcel of that sort of uniqueness is the fact that it also requires a large group of people, particularly experts in various subdomains, fields, specialities, to make sure that the maximum amount of utility is extracted from the resource at any given time. And here you can see a picture we recently took of me and all my colleagues there in front of Frontier. I think that everybody can appreciate the differences. Again, we are a little bit different than a lot of computing facilities. We have many annual users, almost 2,000 annual users from 25 different countries, over 300 institutions. I'm not sure that the pie chart of distribution of how we do allocations is showing up, but we tend to have, compared to other computing facilities of our size, we have relatively few users, relatively few projects, because the projects that we mostly concentrate on are designed to take advantage of and indeed require the capability that we field in the form of the platforms that we yield. You can see that nevertheless, we do produce a good, healthy bunch of peer-reviewed publications over the past decade and a half, let's say. Just to tell you something about the user facility and the allocation programs, we do have 3 competitive allocation programs. One's the ALCC, the Oscar Leadership Computing Challenge. It's more or less dedicated to DOE mission science and science from other U.S. federal agencies. There's a 10% of the time is reserved for directors' discretionary allocations to indeed perhaps do things like prepare for the larger allocation programs. And then the rest, 60% of all the time, is dedicated to Insight, which is a program, an allocation program that we run ourselves along with our colleagues at the Argonne Leadership Computing Facility. The most important characteristic of Insight is it's open to anyone on the planet who can make a reasonable scientific and technical case that they indeed need to use the machine and can, in fact, make use of something at the scale of Frontier. We've, in fact, been doing this for, at this point, quite a long time. We've successfully delivered a string of #1 supercomputers and the first Exascale computer in the world, and we've been lucky enough to do that on schedule and under budget, under the strict controls of the project management regime that the Department of Energy in the U.S. holds us to. The latest machine, of course, is Frontier. I hope everybody's heard about it, but here's some more glamour shots of the machine. I think these photographs give you an idea. It is a behemoth. It's a large machine. It perhaps doesn't dominate our data center the way some other machines have in the past. The cabinets are almost on a human scale. I always liken them to sort of the size of a commercial refrigerator. But if I want to show you some more speeds and feeds, I can immediately jump to that. The machine has a peak speed of 2.1 double precision flop, 2.1 exa double precision flops, contained in 76 compute cabinets. That number's recently been increased a little bit because we pulled in some test and development systems that we had previously kept separately managed from the rest of the cluster. They've now been incorporated into the machine overall. With everything sort of running, including the cooling, 30 megawatts of power consumption. The facility has roughly 40 megawatts of power coming into it. There's 9,728 nodes, 9.5 petabytes of memory evenly distributed between DDR4 connected to the CPUs on the nodes and the high bandwidth memory connected to the GPUs, with a Cray slingshot network and a Dragonfly topology joining those nodes together. A total of 39 petabytes of node local storage in the form of these 4 terabyte non-volatile memory modules that you see referenced in the list about the node, and a 716 petabyte center-wide storage system. That's the formatted capacity. The Olympus cabinets, I can always wax eloquent about sort of how big they are. Again, they're roughly the size of a refrigerator you would see in a restaurant, for example. A little bit higher than your head. A tall person can easily put their hands on them. But they're 3,600 kilograms apiece. I'm always able to, when I give tours to local groups in East Tennessee, liken that weight to 2 Ford F-150 pickup trucks, because those are units that everybody understands. But I think I perhaps need to change my units for this audience. That's roughly 1.4 Mercedes G550s. A lot of weight, nevertheless. A lot of that weight comes from the fact that every component of the node is liquid cooled. Even the DIMMs, the DDR4 DIMMs, and the network interface cards. And importantly, the temperature of the water, it's 32 degrees Celsius water on the cold side. We do that because I hear that I'm missing a bit of a heat wave in Europe this weekend and early week. It's actually kind of cool here in East Tennessee comparatively, but in July it regularly gets to 40 degrees. And even at 40 degrees with W32 water, we don't have to turn chillers on. We don't have to refrigerate the water. We can simply use evaporative cooling. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how the machine is built, it's run, what it's made of. So what can we bend this machine to do? Well, there's this ill-posed question that I'm often asked, and I think you'll perhaps recognize it from the modern zeitgeist, and that is something like, is there a killer app for exascale computing? I don't like that question very much, but I don't get to choose what I'm asked all the time. And the reason I don't like it is because much of the value of unique supercomputing facilities is their ability to have an impact on a huge variety of scientific problems. The Catholic purview of the kind of science that we do rivals any user facility at any national lab here in the U.S. or, as you heard in the run-up, for example, in the national lab system there in Switzerland. My colleagues at the Spallatian Neutron Source at Oak Ridge are rightfully proud of the fact that they can do materials science, biology, any number of particular subdisciplines, but nothing touches the variegation of targets that supercomputing is able to attack. So, fine, I don't like it, but it gets asked. Well, I've thought about the problem a little bit, the question a little bit, and maybe there's not a killer app, but there is this one ubiquitous physical problem that does require a lot of memory, that, for example, in the form of resolution, let's say spatial resolution for the sake of argument, that does require faster compute speed and is important for inclusion in any number of multiphysics simulations. And that problem is the understanding of turbulence. Turbulence has been called the last great unsolved problem of classical physics. It's one of the 7 millennium problems. This apocryphal quote from Werner Heisenberg is almost undoubtedly a complete fabrication. Nevertheless, it is incredibly pithy. When I meet God, I'm going to ask him 2 questions, why relativity and why turbulence? And I really believe he'll have an answer for the first. Even at the exascale, we remain far away from being able to resolve turbulent physics from the largest scales where it's generated, where eddies are first formed, even in terrestrial settings, to the molecular dissipation scale, where that kinetic energy is turned into thermal energy. But there are places where turbulence is important, where other physics might arrest the cascade, or you can get answers before you have to resolve the entire inertial range of turbulence. I think a good example of this is one of the very first very large problems that was done on Frontier by a team of GE engineers from GE Aerospace. They used Frontier to perform the first ever 3D large eddy simulations at realistic flight scale for a particular new kind of jet engine. When they started this project, I admit I didn't know this, but apparently it's been known for 50 years or more that the current standard design of jet engines, I'm assuming that most people got to the conference on jets. Who if you didn't, you of course used a train, I guess, but nevertheless, I'm sure some people did. If you'd looked out on the wing, you would have seen the jet engine hanging off the wing, sort of wrapped in a cowling, a nacelle. The nacelle is there to increase the velocity of the air that's being pulled into the jet engine and make it essentially go faster. It's been known for that half century or so that that's actually not the most efficient way to build a jet engine. So rather than taking a small volume of air and making it move fast through a jet engine, one should really take a large volume of air and just push it more slowly through a jet engine. And so the way to do that is to use a very, very large fan on the front rather than wrapping it in a cowling, like is shown in this picture in the top right. The only problem with that is the aeroacoustic noise that is generated at the tips of those fan blades would be so intense that you could not place an airport anywhere near human habitation. It would be way, way too loud. There are ways to dynamically change the pitch of those fan tips and change the shape of the fan blades themselves, but that takes experimentation. Fine, except there's no wind tunnel on the face of the planet that is big enough to put a jet engine of this scale with a fan of that scale in it at once at the full Reynolds number that it needs to be born at. So this team from GE, even in the midst of Frontier sort of undergoing acceptance testing and getting everything shaken out, they simply got on with the job. They were a delight to work with because of that. They were expert HPC practitioners who simply kept a local spreadsheet of how successful they were for each tranche of the simulation that they did, and they were able to get turbulence generation results from those wingtips that allowed them to go through multiple generations of fan tip design since then. Another similar sort of project that has no analog and being able to have terrestrial experiment back it up is this problem of flying on Mars. So if we want to make it to Mars and colonize the planet, a vehicle carrying astronauts and all their life support systems will weigh tens of tons. Mars has a thin atmosphere, of course, about 100 times less than the Earth's, and therefore you simply cannot use a parachute to get that payload down to the surface of the planet. The answer, after a little thought and maybe hinted by the animation that you see, is that to use retropropulsion, to basically point jets towards the surface and use them to slow down the rate of descent of the lander. But steady flight in the Martian atmosphere requires actually understanding the generation of turbulence in that atmosphere and what actually happens. A lot of this work was started on Summit, but these very, very large simulations where the team was able to do a full, truly autonomous closed-loop test flight was a tour de force that they were able to accomplish on Frontier as well. Again, they could not have flown a Mach 1.4 Mars retro rocket anywhere on the face of the Earth. You have to do this kind of experiment in silico. Another place where turbulence is important is, of course, in terrestrial combustion. For example, in diesel engines. This was an Exascale computing project team led by Jackie Chen at Sandia that were able to use Frontier to model diesel burning in a diesel engine. They have to start at the size of the kernels that start the combustion. They're roughly a micron in the full context of a diesel cylinder, which is tens of centimeters to a meter in scale. They were able to achieve a tenfold improvement over the best results they had on Summit in 2020 by running these simulations on Frontier. And now they're looking to increase the size and complexity of the chemical network that they use to generate not only the energy release, but tracking the ashes, if you will, of the combustion. This combination of factors is becoming very much a feature of exascale computing, where resolution is required to answer the first fundamental question, but you need to also have the full context of the scientific or engineering problem that you're trying to solve. Oh, and by the way, at each spatial grid point, you have multiple degrees of freedom, in this case, chemical kinetics going on, that you need to worry about as well if you actually want to get the right answer. So I think this is an exemplar of this kind of project. But as I said before, it's not all turbulence all the time, although there's a lot. Frontier's also pretty good at doing other kinds of let's call them traditional supercomputing tasks. For example, this project looking to generate and understand the formation of a diamond phase called BC8, that is a body-centered cubic configuration of carbon atoms that stems from the transition of the tetrahedral face-centered cubic structure of diamond that's a little bit special, that gives it a lot of its hardness. It's been theorized that for a long time at high temperature and high pressure, that diamond can undergo a phase transition from the diamond crystal phase to this body-centered cubic phase BC8. And you can see here on this phase diagram a phase boundary between the two, where if you raise the temperature high enough, and it's high indeed, it's say twice that liquid part of the phase diagram is sort of twice the temperature of the surface of the sun. Nevertheless, it exists. That this transition can happen. By using a new set of machine-learned snap potentials in the molecular dynamics code LAMMPS, this team led by Ivan Olenek from the University of South Florida was able to actually see that the transition from the diamond phase to the BC8 phase doesn't quite happen the way that you might think as you just traverse this phase diagram, that in fact the phase diagram is much more complex, and that there's a phase where diamond is in a metastable state because of the thermal properties of the lattice itself. And there's lots of pre-melting and coarsening, lots of scale changes that happen along another locus in the phase diagram, and that in fact BC8 as a phase only occupies a rather small portion of the phase diagram. You can see in this movie as well sort of what it looks like. I think it harkens back to Vonnegut's work about ICE9. You can see that the metastable state sort of starts to take over the bulk until finally you get to high enough pressures where the BC8 here in purple will take over all of what's happening. So again, the ability to do many instantiations of very high fidelity molecular dynamics simulations requiring the memory of 8,000 frontier nodes is what really allowed this discovery to happen in a straightforward manner. Along those same lines, last year's Gordon Bell Prize was awarded for a set of quantum chemistry calculations on Frontier using molecular dynamics to study modern drug design and the binding of potential drug candidates to large proteins, which is, of course, the operation of most drug discovery. It highlights the notion that indeed function does follow form. It's important to know the structure, the folding structure of various proteins. That is an essential piece, but it is not, in fact, the whole story when it comes to being able to see, for example, how a drug candidate is going to bind to a particular site on a protein. This is a lesson that I think we learned fairly viscerally during the COVID pandemic, even in the face of a virus molecule that was fairly straightforward and not that big, but it presented enough challenges to really drive this home, especially when some projects were casting about trying to find any extant drug that could perhaps be repurposed to fighting that particular spike protein that the COVID virus uses to enter the human cell. Reduced precision models are more computationally efficient, but they produce less accurate results. And when you're actually wanting to bind together these two things, you need to do quantum mechanics ultimately. And that's exactly what this project did. It started with molecular dynamics simulations, but then as the drugs get very close to the protein, they transition to a fully dynamic electron configuration model. and are able to sort of take that last mile straightforwardly. This whole simulation was the first time resolved quantum chemistry simulation to exceed an exaflop, making it, in my opinion, a pretty easy choice for last year's Gordon Bell Prize. We also, on Frontier, contributed to last year's special prize on climate modeling, which went to the KAUST Exascale Climate Emulator. Emulators for climate, I think, are pretty interesting. It's almost as if you're sort of double dipping in your ability to explore a big manifold. So the notion is you can do high resolution, in this case, high spatial resolution simulations, using all the possible physics that you have in a fully coupled climate model, take those data, train a set of emulators. In this particular case, the technologies that were used were deep neural networks and Gaussian process models. It's also important to note that this is aided by the fact the team picked the right sort of algorithm to do this encoding as well by decomposing, for example, most of the atmospheric physics into spherical harmonics on the surface of the sphere, so that they were able to reduce the data needs for these emulators. But the emulators allow the practitioners to then explore the space of various parameters for the full models, and instead of having to do some number X fully resolved, fully involved climate simulations, they can explore that space and see where they need to vary parameters fast and where the other parameters don't matter so much. And the ability to do this with a much reduced set of data, to take full advantage of the reduced precision arithmetic that is found on modern GPU machines, again, is also a real tour de force. And I think it was a fairly straightforward win as well for a lot of those reasons. So Frontier has computational power that allows it to go to ridiculous resolution in space and in other variables. It can do that really fast and therefore explore a fuller space of particular parameter spaces. But there's even more. The last example that I want to leave you with is something that's near and dear to my heart because it's very close to the research that I've done for a very, very long time. And that's this work by Will Detmold and his team at MIT. They did ridiculously large lattice QCD simulations, ridiculously large in the number of particles that are tracked in these gauge configurations and in the simulations themselves, order 1,000. A few orders of magnitude more than is typically done, even for very, very large calculations in lattice QCD. The point was to try to answer something about the equation of state of nuclear matter found in neutron stars. The maximum mass that a neutron star can take is uncertain because we don't really understand the high density equation of state. By high density, I mean nuclear matter density or above. So 3 times 10 to the 14 grams per cubic centimeter. It's impossible to really put that number in perspective, but if you do the math, you'll discover if you had a sugar cube, a cubic centimeter of nuclear matter here on the surface of the Earth, it would weigh as much as all of us. And by all of us, I don't mean all of my colleagues that might be sleeping near me here, or even in the audience there in Brugge, but in fact, all us humans. Every man, woman, and child on the surface of the planet. Understanding, again, there's no way to experimentally determine that. If we get it wrong, however, we don't know how many black holes versus neutron stars exist in the universe. They're both born from supernovae, And it's important to know how many neutron stars there are relative to black holes in the universe, because the heaviest elements found in nature, for example, uranium, are born in very neutron-rich environments. For example, merging neutron stars, perhaps in the heaviest supernovae as well, via the so-called rapid neutron capture process. After the Big Bang happened, there was only hydrogen and helium. Everything else has been cooked up in stars and then spit into interstellar space by supernova explosions. These huge particle lattice QCD calculations actually took a first principles look at the density-pressure relationship in neutron star matter instead of using phenomenological models, which have been the standard way to look at this problem for close to a century now. And we're able to determine that the maximum mass of the neutron star may be a little bit higher than we previously thought. And that has important ramifications for where in the progenitor mass distribution of supernova progenitors we think the dividing line is between the production of black holes versus neutron stars, and therefore how many seed neutrons can we get for the rapid neutron capture process. And for example, how much more gold we can expect to be able to put around our necks in the form of necklaces at any point. Okay, so that's a bit of an overview of some of the examples that we have from what we've done on Frontier in the first couple of years of its production life. I think that I'm very, very happy to admit that I was, of course, excited about breaking the exascale barrier. We, of course, had led up to it with the project to build Frontier for several years. We had also, of course, been heavily involved in the exascale computing project in the U.S. But I will admit that I was quite amazed at just what kind of phase change it really instituted. I'm a little bit used to incremental progress like you see in science in general, and therefore that tends to be the way I think. But we really have seen large-scale changes. And the new demands have sort of grown out of the things that are the most interesting changes that we've seen. And that, for example, the need to accurately account for larger domains. For example, fusion energy simulations from the bulk of my career have mostly been about, for example, using particle and cell methods to look at the turbulent plasma in tokamaks. Again, referring to turbulence. That's still something that is done, but the very, very largest, most ambitious simulations on machines like Frontier aren't just PIC codes running a magnetically confined fusion plasma, but in fact are the plasma and the wall blanket with the proper materials properties. Oh, and by the way, also the pedestal holding up the edge of the tokamak also included, because that matters ultimately to the geometry of the plasma. You also see examples in things like human digital twins or any number of engineering turbulent flows like the diesel combustion that I referred to earlier. We also have seen this need to increase throughput for high fidelity simulations. So again, we could not, those emulators that the Kaus team won the last year's Special Award Bell Prize for only sort of are useful if you have high fidelity simulations to produce the data at the correct resolution, therefore to get the right answer in most of the multiphysics. And the only way to do that is to actually do those very, very large simulations and do a lot of them. Nevertheless, I think there's a real opportunity, and people are already realizing this, for AI to help with the design for things like design of experiments. Where in the parameter space do I really want to concentrate my effort, or all the simulations that I want to do? Also, we've seen this ability and a need to eschew approximations that have been or are being shown to break down as capabilities increase. So things like common subgrid models for turbulent combustion, for example, I would say my colleagues who do MD, and I beg the forgiveness of anybody in the audience who's an MD practitioner, but I'm always sort of fond of telling them that MD is an incredibly wrong theory, no matter how useful it is. There's nothing about molecular dynamics that actually happens when you're talking about simple Newtonian-like attraction and repulsion with hand-tuned classical potentials. But in fact, what's happening is quantum mechanics. Nevertheless, MD has been wildly successful at describing a host of phenomena, and then coupling in multiphysics. And this is something that we've moved beyond, in some cases, beyond simple string splitting in time to other higher order coupling. Some places we found that doing higher order doesn't really help. But now that we have ample opportunity to improve the approximations used in each of the pieces, that needs to be revisited. And I think that we can actually map each one of these particular needs to things about the exascale and the next machines and set of machines that we build that sort of tell us what we're going to have to stretch. You'll notice that there's no increase in flops here because despite our whole community appearing to maybe some of our scientific colleagues to be the boy who cried wolf, for the last, at least my career, I've been told that Moore's law is dead or dying, and now it's actually true. The wolf's really at the door. You'll notice that increased flops is nowhere on this list, but nevertheless, the ability to improve memory size and memory bandwidth, for example, wide area networking, an increase in that, making the flops more usable, and that usability can come from several different sources. Judicious use of things like AI and machine learning. Quantum computing, I think, is going to come to the fore first and foremost on quantum problems, and maybe only on quantum problems ultimately. And then this coupling in multiphysics, I think, is a prime example of where algorithms still win. We still get most of the advantage as integrated over time when it comes to trying to model what nature actually looks like through our ability to have better, more robust, more accurate, more understandable in many cases algorithms that map to the available hardware in a straightforward and usable way. So with that, I'd like to really thank you for your attention, and hopefully we'll be able to facilitate some questions. Thanks very, very, very much.
Time for questions now. Yes, Peter?
Hello. Hi, it's Peter Vincent here from Imperial College. Thank you, Bronson, very much for the fantastic talk. You mentioned number precision at various points. In one example, the importance of double precision, and in another example, how they'd utilized lower precision effectively. I wondered for what your view was for the next generation of supercomputer, whether it can or should retain a substantive double precision compute capability versus letting go of that requirement.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's a very important one. I'll say this: I think that a lot of my colleagues, a lot of the folks that I talk to who actually do science, they care very much about high precision. They don't care so much about the IEEE FP64 standard, except in some cases where it's actually saved them from making mistakes or where it's necessary. But there are calculations that are done today that need to be done in FP128. I think the most interesting distinguishing characteristic is that a lot of the physical problems that we actually use computers to solve share this fairly generic trait that I can't write the answer down in closed form. I have a colleague longtime colleague who does a ton of computing and tells me that if he could invert 100 by 100 ill-conditioned matrices in his head, he would never touch a damn computer again. And he means it. But we can't. And those problems tend to have this trait where you're computing equilibria or near equilibria via the competition of countervailing quantities. So you have equilibrium around some chemical, you're calculating chemical equilibrium through a forward and reverse rate or something like that. That requires especially sort of high precision for FMAs. Nevertheless, there's plenty of room for reduced precision to help. I think reduced precision preconditioners for lots of problems that can be cast as dense linear systems are a really big area that we're going to be able to attack. I'm very interested also in trying to find places in extant codes where reduced precision can be used, but I think that's going to require good tooling. We need to be able to put in users' hands the ability to interrogate a current code base and figure out where they need precision and where they don't, and get rid of what I call lazy promotion, where everything, for example, in the code is declared real star 8, and then you use the flag to raise the precision of everything when you don't need to. So I think I'm a firm believer that if we want to keep doing scientific computing using large computers, we have to have something that can do high precision arithmetic, where high precision does come close to FP64. I don't care if it's software or hardware. It just has to perform. Oh, and by the way, it can't steal too many resources from that red list that I had on a previous slide.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Nicola, over there.
Thank you. This is Nicola Marzari from EPFL and PSI, and thanks for the great talk. I presume it's very early over there. So I remember a few years ago, Jim Chelikowski from UT Austin, he was receiving the Anizur Rahman Prize for Computational Physics from the American Physical Society. And he started his talk saying this, that is, he said, if I had to choose between the ideas, the algorithms, the software of today and the machines of 30 years ago, or the machines of today and the ideas and the software and the algorithms from 30 years ago, I would actually choose the former. And so, the question is, even starting from DOE, don't you think there is an imbalance from, this great investment in frontier hardware, but what we should actually be doing with, the software scientists that, think and build, the codes and the algorithms and the science that we actually need to run on these machines.
I do totally agree with that. I tried to indicate that I think that algorithms basically always win. I fully agree with Tchaikovsky's evaluation. I think it's been proven in decade after decade that algorithms always win. I do think that the ECP in the US was an attempt to try to ratchet up at least implementations of modern algorithms in code bases commensurate with the hardware that we were fielding. I think that a lot of attention could easily be paid to the intense training of what I would call research software engineers for the future. I think that there's lots of room for those kind of folks to collaborate directly with applied mathematicians especially applied mathematicians who have a particular computational bent. I've had the good fortune of collaborating with several folks like that in my career, and I found it absolutely incredibly enriching, number one, and good grief, incredibly useful. In fact, huge speed ups. I've gotten more speed up out of my collaborations with my applied math colleagues than any other single hardware jump. So yes, I totally agree that there is a need to support algorithm research, and that to some extent, if you don't do that, you are leaving flops on the floor. no matter how good your hardware is. That said, you do need a platform to instantiate the ideas fully and to allow computation to actually happen.
Yeah, thanks. I agree. I still think we don't have the models. The Steve Plimpton that does lamps has much more impact that a lot of these efforts that you have been mentioning. And so I think as a scientific society we should actually be pushing more for these career models.
I totally agree. I will be very frank with the audience. Any phrase that is like that says something like computational scientists don't care about X, they just want to get science done, I find it insulting to all computational scientists. Nobody ever says that to an experimentalist when it comes to the operation of their instrument.
Other questions? Okay. Oh, yes, one question.
Thank you very much for your fantastic talk. I'm Christophe Correxas from the University of Geneva and BNBU in China. So I was wondering what's your opinion regarding the use of FPGAs in the HPC context, because right now we are moving towards GPUs that consume more and more energy, and at some point we might want to switch towards that is more energy efficient.
That's an excellent question. I think that my personal feeling is that there is a place for FPGAs in the more or less immediate future to carry out tasks, because I think that for the reasons you just stated and for various others, the need to have a more heterogeneous ecosystem is going to become a necessity perhaps before we want it to. It is, to some extent, at some scale, to be usable to the bulk of scientists, systems do need to be homogeneous at some scale. It's not clear to me that it needs to be the node scale, but there needs to be some level of homogeneity so you can straightforwardly think about how to program them. That said, that still leaves a lot of room for things like FPGAs to take on specific tasks. And as you say, energy consumption is going to be a bigger and bigger problem. I mean, here in East Tennessee, one of the reasons we have a leadership computing facility in East Tennessee is we're surrounded by Tennessee Valley Authority lakes and dams. Therefore, we can get relatively abundant and cheap hydroelectric power directly into the center. But we're running out of places to run power lines. Where there's real talk about siting small modular reactors very close to our laboratory just to power data centers, let alone other scientific instruments. So yes, I think that FPGAs have a role to play, but I worry a little bit about the level, the scale of heterogeneity that will induce.
Thank you.
We have a question here.
Thank you again. Charles Prouver from CNRS France. I'm not going to start the discussion on FPGAs as I use them regularly with GPUs as well. But on the other side, do you see the envelope used by supercomputers to keep increasing, which is the trend nowadays? And do you look at the super chips? So we have GPUs, we have CPUs, we look at FPGAs, but there are also new trendsetters, let's say completely new different chips coming up. And I don't know if you at Frontier, at Oak Ridge, are looking at that.
We have, and we continue to very, very closely. when we first fielded Titan a decade ago, perhaps I would argue the first really large-scale hybrid CPU-GPU supercomputer, it was a huge deal, especially with the tooling that was available at that time. How could we get codes to actually be able to use effectively the power of the GPU? It's, of course, much easier today with the tooling we have available, but nevertheless, it's non-trivial. It remains non-trivial. I think one of the lessons that we learned in the ECP, however, is that with moderate, I would say, effort and really good memory subsystems on both sides, the CPU and the GPU side, that perhaps there's an opportunity to get even more performance through good memory placement than there is in, for example, flattening the memory hierarchy across a superchip. I don't think that necessarily is something that's baked in to the current ideas around those architectures. I think it was perhaps an accident of the particular time, and an accident that you had fairly well-funded teams during the ECP that could take the time and, for example, had research software engineers working very hard on those codes. And so it may have been a bit of a false positive in that case. And I think that that's the lens through which we are viewing those kinds of architectures for the near future.
Okay, with this, let's thank again Bronson for his excellent talk.
Thank you very much.
And we continue now with part one of the Flash poster session. And the chair will be Chris Cantwell from Imperial College, London.
Okay, thank you everyone. Good morning. So this is going to be the first of 2 Flash poster sessions, and I'm delighted to be able to moderate this session. As a member of the poster committee, I've had the chance to review a lot of these posters, and I can say the scientific quality is excellent. So the aim of this session is to give you a taster of what's to come in the poster reception that will take place outside in the foyer area tomorrow evening. Okay, it's part of with a reception as well. So that's the incentive, to try and get you to go along. So 7 o'clock tomorrow, right? So we also want you to participate in trying to decide which is the best poster. Okay, so there's going to be voting slips that you as the audience can go along. You can decide which are your 2 favorite posters, and you can fill in the poster IDs on the slips and put them in one of these blue boxes. And then the winner of that poster competition is going to be announced in the closing session on Wednesday afternoon. Okay, so that's what the slip looks like. So we've got posters from a wide range of institutions. You can see some of them listed up here. We've got another slide of them to come as well. I'm probably not going to read out the institutions, but you'll see them on the screen. So we've got another set as well. Okay, so how is this going to work? Well, I'm going to invite each poster presenter to come up onto stage one at a time. I'm going to give them, they have 30 seconds to tell you why you should come and see their poster. Okay? 30 seconds is a real challenging time to talk to. So there's going to be a little timer in the bottom corner that you can have a look at on the screen here to keep to time. Okay? So let's get started. So our first poster is by Michael Staniker and Ahmed Nawab, and they're going to talk about achieving performance portability on ECMWF's open source operational wave model, ECWAM, using source-to-source translation and GPU-aware data structures.
Hi, thanks. You already said most of what I wanted to say. So it's the operational wave model for Destiny. So we're targeting hardware across all the EuroHPC architectures. And we achieve performance portability using source-to-source translation, using Loki. and a GPU-aware data structure library called Field API.
So if you want to talk about any of the above topics or just generally want to vent about Fortran, please come say hi.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to? Okay, our next poster is going to be by Michele. Okay, our next poster is going to be presented by George Mayer, who's going to talk about BitIF, an incremental sparse tensor format for maximizing efficiency in tensor vector multiplications. Thank you.
Good day, everybody. As focus in industry and also science shifts more and more towards data-driven approaches and modeling, and at the same time, data sets grow exponentially in size and dimensionality. The development of a high-performance, consistent representation of this data is critical. And exactly this is what BitIF promises to be. On the one side, it saves around 30% of storage needs compared to the most used other representation techniques called coordinate format. And on the other side, it's much more robust and especially overhead-free compared to other state-of-the-art methods. If you're now curious how incremental sparse fibers and Hilbert curves unlock this potential, I invite you to my poster at PO3.
Okay, thank you. Our next poster is by Elan Bouquet, who's going to talk about calculation of spin-hole qubit eigenstates with GPU-accelerated Rayleigh-Chebyshev subspace iteration method.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Elan, and at Zurich we've been developing a GPU-accelerated eigensolver for the solving based on the Rayleigh-Chebyshev method. And the idea is to speed up the simulation we have to run to investigate silicon-based quantum devices. And this implementation was successful. We could compare how well it performed on GPU and CPUs, and we could indeed increase the simulation routine by another magnitude of 20. So if you're curious about it, join me tomorrow evening for the reception. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next poster is by Stephen Francis, who's going to talk about the chatbot update system, CUS, an effective interface to train AI.
Thank you. Like you said, I'm Steve, and there's so much brilliance here, so at the very least, a bonus would be that you could come to my poster and share your brilliance with me. As well, so this is interdisciplinary, so there's design and computing, and we're looking at how efficiently we were able to train UI with this tool called CUS, and we're able to bring the request time down, the time for the user down, and improve these simulations for playable case studies for the students. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our next poster is by Edward Erasmi-Jones, who's going to talk about code generation of highly efficient finite element operations using the MLIR compiler infrastructure.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, we're trying to address the hardware extensibility problem in the development of PDE solvers by developing an intermediate representation of high-order finite element operations that sits between the source code and target hardware. These operations can then be just-in-time compiled using LLVM that optimizes for the target architecture, and then we return this highly optimized kernel back to the source code again for use in your applications. If you're interested in this or MLIR in general, then please come see me at my poster tomorrow at P06. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next poster is by Veronica Melesse-Vergara from Oak Ridge, who's going to talk about a deep dive into deep learning frameworks for protein structure prediction, developing and evaluating classes of biomolecular complexes.
Thank you, and hi everyone. My name is Veronica Melesse-Vergara. I'm from Oak Ridge National Lab, and for the poster, I'm going to be presenting a comparison of different frameworks that are available, open source and some that aren't, but we have compared them on Frontier and on the cloud, and to learn more about whether Chai, Boltz, AlphaFold, AlphaFold2, Complex, and others, how well they work, and which cases, for the classification, which cases we found interesting particularities depending on the framework we're using, come by, and you'll learn more about which ones work well and which ones don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Sarah Fahid Naini, who's going to talk about developing a portable implementation for the next generation ECMWF model. Thank you.
Thank you. The operational model of ECMWF contains of millions of lines of Fortran code which are hard to maintain and require a whole team to port to modern architectures like GPUs. That's why we are developing a next generation dynamical core written entirely in Python using the GT4Py domain-specific library. The new model enables a separation of concerns and is built on a finite volume discretization. Please visit our poster to find out more.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Martin Ernst, who's going to talk about efficient execution of multi-physics simulation assembly using Cockos Graph.
Thank you. So finite element assembly is a computational workload that is composed of many small computational workloads. So how to have a good design for your code and how to efficiently schedule these two GPUs? Well, in this poster, we explore the use of Cockos Graph, which is a new execution model in the Cockos scientific computing library to implement finite element assembly, describe these small workloads, and efficiently schedule them to GPUs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Alberto Invernizzi, who's going to talk about electronic structure calculations powered by DLA Future. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Everyone in material science world knows about CP2K and Sirius, and recently these codes got an upgrade that allowed them to improve their performance on GPU architectures, both NVIDIA and AMD. The upgrade consists in replacing the distributed eigensolver with DLA Future, which is a C++ library based on standard exec. It might sound like an hard task, but actually it's not, thanks to DLA Future that provides a Scalapac-like C API and Fortran API. So if you're wondering how to improve a code that needs a distributed eigensolver, and you want them to run on GPU architectures of both vendors, AMD and NVIDIA, now you know the answers, DLA Future. See you at P10.
Thank you. Okay, our next poster is by Matteo Bonino and Javed Komijani.
Hello, my name is Javad Komijani from ETH Zurich. In this poster, we are actually talking about a package that we are developing to use normalizing flow for the generation of lattice field configurations, and we are looking at profiling and scalability of the model. Do you want to have some?
Yeah, we did the integration with a software package we're developing in a European project called i2AI, which allows us to study the scalability in HPC and measure the energy consumption, also comparing different scalability frameworks. And on top of this, we optimize the performance on HPC using PySpy and other profiling methods by improving the training time and the scalability by about 70%. So if you want to know more about scaling lattice QCD and AI methods for this, come to our poster 11. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, our next poster is by Michael Redenti, who's going to talk about enhancing productivity and performance analysis on Euro HPC systems.
Hi. So basically, because benchmarking data of scientific applications is usually not shared, we've worked on a workflow that automates benchmarking across diverse Euro HPC systems, and we then shared that data to a centralized server where we use Grafana to visualize it on a unified dashboard. This not only helps us in monitoring the health of the HPC system, but also helps HPC users in choosing the optimal configurations for their simulation runs, making the use of their resources much more efficient. So if you want to know more about our posters, just come to P12. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next poster is by Daniel Abel. Abel? Okay, who's going to talk about estimation of carving law parameters from satellite data.
Hi, I'm working on simulations of continental ice sheets. And I'm developing a solver for the level set method to capture the moving fronts of glaciers. The main purpose is to estimate model parameters through inversion, but we are also looking at performance and scalability of discontinuous Galerkin methods and coupling of simulations. And my poster is a lot more colorful now, but you'll find it.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Andreas Jocks, who's going to talk about flux-form semi-Lagrangian, FFSL, schemes on triangular mesh.
Thank you. I have co-authors from DWD and Meteo Swiss and ETH Zurich, and we investigate a numerical scheme used in the weather and climate code ICON. So we have a look at the dispersion relation of the tracer advection scheme on a planar 2D mesh, and we find surprising results. One is that the phase speed real part is negative for high wave numbers. Yes, if you're interested in that and others things, come to our poster. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Eamon Bell, who's going to talk about fostering the wider adoption of high-performance computing by UK-based arts and humanities researchers via national training and community building initiatives. Thank you.
Good morning, thank you. How many arts and humanities researchers have you collaborated with as computational scientists, or SEs, or facility managers? If the answer is very, very low, you might have some reasons or suggestions for why you think that's the case. The fact is there isn't that much evidence around why those things are the way they are. And so we present two projects that are aiming to both collect the data and solve the problem. One is a traditional research code-based research software community, and the second one is a methods fellowship, which involves co-design with arts and humanities researchers seeking to pose and answer extremely ambitious questions at high scale using infrastructure. If you want to talk about that, find me at P15.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Gabriel Vollenweider, who's going to talk about GPU porting of ECMWF physical parameterizations using a high-level programming model. Thank you.
So operational weather forecasts are now reaching resolutions where some subscript scale parameterizations can be turned off. But even at very high resolutions, we still need parameterizations for very small scale processes like cloud microphysics or radiative transfer. Therefore, we are developing efficient GPU-accelerated codes of these parameterizations using the Python library GT4Py. And if you want to know the performance of our GT4Py codes on different European supercomputers, you can come visit us at Poster 16. Thank you.
Okay, our next poster is by Carlo Elia Doncecchi, who's going to talk about GPU-accelerated DEM simulations for complex particle shapes, optimizing spheropolyhedral contact detection.
So my poster is about GPU-accelerated discrete element method simulation for complex particle shapes. In our work, we use a spheropolyhedra to represent irregular shaped particles, and everything is implemented on Exadem, which is an HPC open source code designed for large-scale DEM simulations. We optimize the contact detection using the PCCPB method, in which each thread handles one contact pair and gave us a 2x speedup. And we also ported the Nebolist construction to the GPU, which brought us a 3x speedup over the best CPU version.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next poster is presented by Simone Riva, who's going to talk about GPU-accelerated fluid structure interaction resampling in FEM, including application of three-dimensional fourth-order WeKnow.
Good morning. In fluid structure interaction, the transferring data from the fluid to the solid and vice versa is very hard. It's a very hard computation from a computational standpoint. So, because it involves two different grids. For solving this problem, we used a direct programming with CUDA by achieving a very high efficiency. And this very high efficiency is not only to going faster, but also to apply more advanced method like the WeKnow. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next poster is being presented by Iona Maria Ligatsica, who's going to talk about a GPU-accelerated implementation of spectrum slicing for plane wave density functional theory in AB init.
Thank you. Hi, we compute eigenstates of materials using quantum physics. We basically solve an eigen problem, and we have an operator that is expressed in a very large plane wave basis, and we only search for few lowest eigenstates. An existing algorithm is Chebyshev filtering subspace iteration. However, it has a bottleneck that we hope to solve using spectrum slicing. We paid particular attention on the load balancing between slices, and we implemented this method in the open source ABinit on MPI and GPUs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next poster is being presented by Carla Lopez Zorita, who's going to talk about a poster on GPU-accelerated matrix decomposition and selected inversion for banded arrowhead matrices.
Hello, everyone. Certain applications, such as quantum transport and Bayesian inference, require specific entries of the diagonal of very large sparse matrices. This is called selected inversion. Previous work relied on using diagonal blocks to cover the non-zero entries of these matrices, specifically block-banded arrowhead matrices. Now we explore the implications of using finer grain tiling to cover this sparsity pattern. We look at things such as runtime, number of floating point operations, and storage for both CPU and GPU. So if you're interested, please visit Poster 20. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, poster 21 is presented by Tomin Tomasetti, and he's going to tell us about his poster on graph abstraction for efficient scheduling of asynchronous workloads on GPU.
Hi everyone, so yet another poster on GPUs. So if you're interested in efficiently and portably scheduling a lot of GPU workloads that can be organized as a direct acyclic graph on GPUs, then yeah, come talk to me. So we'll look at how we do it in the portable framework called Cocos that is developed by RNL and us. So yeah, just come talk to us if you are in execution models, interested in GPU, portability, all these things. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next poster is presented by Christoph Muller. And just Christoph Muller, or?
Just Enrique.
The other one, okay. Enrique Gonzalez Paredes.
Hi, everyone. Climate and weather applications are traditionally coded in Fortran and highly optimized for specific CPU architectures, which makes porting the transition to new hardware very challenging and time-consuming. GT4Pi is a framework written in Python to write these applications in Python in a DSL that generates performance-portable code that works transparently and efficiently across different hardware architectures. GT4Pi is developed over several years at CSCS in close collaboration with other partners like Meteo Swiss, ECMWF, the SPCL Computing Lab at ETH Zurich, and we have already several scientific teams that are using it across Europe and US. If you are interested, please visit our poster and ask any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and our next and possibly final poster is by Matilde Giannoli, who's going to tell us about how to build an energy data set for HPC.
Thanks. Hi, my poster is about HPC energy consumption. I will present an energy analysis of the main 3V clusters of the new supercomputer ALPS, based on job-level data from Slurm, enriched with telemetry energy data of ALPS. Yes, so thank you for your attention, and see you at PU24.
Okay. Okay, sorry, there was another poster. Okay, the last poster, I believe now, is going to be presented by Edgar A. Leon, who's going to tell us about improving productivity of threaded scientific applications with QoVadis.
There is a growing gap between the following two pillars of supercomputing: applications and hardware. Applications use multiple programming abstractions, while hardware is getting more complex and more heterogeneous. In this poster, we present the threaded interface of QoVadis to bridge this gap. It's an interface that maps parallel scientific applications to the hardware efficiently and portably.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our first Flash poster session. So I'd like to thank all the speakers. I think you did a fantastic job. Let's give them a round of applause. I apologize to those of you who I might have mispronounced your name. Hope you forgive me. So it just leaves me to conclude this session by reminding you to turn up to the poster and reception tomorrow evening. You can also come and see the second Flash poster session, which is tomorrow morning after the keynote, and to come along and vote for your posters and tell us which one you think is the best. Okay, so I will hand back over to Laura.
So now we have a coffee break, and we'll resume at 11:20.